The following is a conversation between Matías De Stefano, referred to as me, and his higher self, referred to as I am. The date is January 18th, 2021, and the subject is the emotional aspect of the knees chakra in the sign of Capricorn. I am. How do you experience crises and conflicts? How do you assimilate defeats and challenges? Do you have enemies? Are they real or made up? Me. After 6 months of searching for the deepest answers in the universe, I think that talking about enemies or thinking that I have them is almost absurd. I am. What color is the sky? Me. Light blue? Although we already talked about the fact that it is not really light blue, but that it is how my eyes perceive the photons reflecting the atoms of argon, nitrogen, and oxygen. I am. So the light blue color doesn't exist. It's just your perception of light reflected from certain atoms. Me. Yeah. I am. But even so, you see it light blue, right? Me. Yes, I see it as light blue. I am. Therefore, that distortion for your brain is recognized as light blue. Essentially, it does not exist. It is a belief. But conceptually, it does exist because it helps you interpret the space in which you find yourself. Otherwise, you couldn't differentiate the earth from the sky. Me. Are you trying to tell me with this that beyond the fact that I know that essentially enemies don't exist since everything is one, my brain needs to create enemies to have reference points? I am. Yes, you got it right. Me. So, explain to me, are enemies necessary? I am. Yes, but only conceptually. Me. How do I differentiate a real enemy from a conceptual one? I am. Easy. Real enemies do not exist. They only are created by the mind. Me. What? But when there is a war, there are real enemies because the threat is real. I am. Why does war arise? Me. Conflicts of interest, whether religious, cultural, ideologies, and philosophies, or due to economic, natural, territorial resources, or sometimes simple misunderstandings. I am. Define interest. Me. Something I want that I seek for my own benefit. I am. Interest arises from the words inter, meaning between, and esse, meaning to be, that is, to be between something. Interest defines the concept of those who keep someone connected to another. We can say that a synonym of interest is important, which comes from the Latin to bring something to me. What matters to us is a matter, material, which is exchanged for interest. What makes something matter to us, and we consider it important or interesting? Me. Our need for it, because of the value we give it. I am. What is value? Me. A weight or conceptual force that we attribute to things. I am. That is to say that value is subjective. Me. Yes, for some cultures gold is the most valuable, for others it's just another stone. For someone, money has value, for others it has a seed. For some, a relationship has more value than a material possession, or vice versa. It's subjective. I am. Therefore, the interest is never based on something real, but conceptual, based on the perception that I have about the world, just as you see the light blue sky. Me. I understand. I am. That is to say that the creation of a friend or a friend is merely conceptual. The conflict that you have is due to an interest in values that arise from defending what you observe from your point of view. A religion that generates a conflict is nothing more than a conflict of illusions, not based on objective facts. The belonging of something physical is the subjectivity of believing that something belongs to you and the other does not. When the basis of interest is sharing, not possessing. The struggle for a philosophy among human beings is totally subjective, not based on natural processes, but on utopian imaginaries. An emotional conflict arises from the unmet needs of a being that feels empty and expects the other to fill that gap to feel complete. But the void is conceptual, because inside you have everything you need. A war is a conflict of interests born from the confusion and internal disorder of a being or group. The word war comes from the Indo-European wers, which means disorder, mix, confused, distortion. But what other word makes the sound wers? Me. I guess verse. I am, as in universe. Me. Oh sure, universe. The unique turn. Everything returns to unity. What doubles on itself. The twist of the one. I am. But that is what defines returning to unity. How would you define that which is twisted outwards and only seeks division, distortion, and confusion? Me. Adverse. I am from the Latin ad, meaning towards, and versus, meaning twisting. Me. Adversity would initiate the external conflict, the universe expanding, moving away from the one to create all experiences. I am. The universe knows that nothing outside of itself really exists, but it needs to position itself in its reflection, distort its image in order to see different options. Thus, in doubling of time and space, he finds different forms, finds new perspectives, perceives himself in different ways, and this leads him to learn, to evolve. Me. Through distortion one is nourished by different options. I am. And that's where adversity makes sense. This is where the conflict finds its logic. Me. Wow. I am. The struggle is the same being observing itself from different opposing directions, related by the same interest. After millions of folds, the I am becomes the I, and the I seeks to survive. It is afraid of bending again and losing what it built. That is, it fears death. And in that fear of losing, it clings to whatever he can, and interest becomes a struggle to possess, to occupy spaces that lead him into conflict with his environment. Me. Does this justify the war? I am. No, it doesn't justify war, it explains it. The universe does not generate wars, it generates options, and what its parts decide to do with the options is free will. And that freedom sometimes causes confusion, which leads to experiencing adversities that, from the conscience, nourish the experience, but from unconsciousness, they generate wars, from the mental, emotional, and physical. Me. So, an enemy is the mental construction of our being trying to transcend a conflict. I am. It is the idea to solve. The mind needs to project the internal conflict onto something external in order to observe it. Thus, the image of the opponent, the adversary, the enemy, is useful to the conscious mind to see its own defects outside when it cannot see them inside. By seeing the projection, you can analyze all the conflicts that arise from this reflection, and thus honor the enemy as the one who allowed you to transcend yourself to a higher level of consciousness. Me. But I am. However, the subconscious mind seeks to survive and interprets everything external as a threat, creating preconceptions, limiting beliefs, patterns, that they consider that the projection is a real threat and therefore the fight is a form of defense. Thus, the cultural unconscious creates common enemies such as other nations, cultures, religions, systems, or individuals who, by blaming them for the threat, release the subconscious from the pressure of having to transform itself through observation. Me. That is to say that in a biological need to save energy so as not to transform, it is easier to place what you must work on an external enemy and blame him and even try to destroy him, thinking that this is the way the threat will disappear. I am. That's right. So you have two paths to choose from here. The universe was projected in the adverse to seek ways of manifestation, development, experience. And in this adverse aspect, now you must choose between living it from the consciousness or unconsciousness. Me. From the unconscious, I will generate enemies all the time outside. Ex-partners, relatives, abusers, dictators, Illuminati, reptilians, religions, the Pope, companies, governments, aliens, other nations, races, cultures, or philosophies, seeking to free myself of the responsibility of transforming, transcending, and finding coherence. From consciousness, I will see adversities as mechanisms of evolution, learning, that nourish my experience and make me expand towards higher levels of understanding and manifestation. I am. As you will see, adversity is not the problem, but your mental position before it. It is your perception of things that generates the conflict. And it has become systemic after millions of years of cyclical repetition. If you really seek to transform the world, then you must forgive your enemies and create a new reality where you are not a victim of adversity, but use it for the expansion of your infinite creative being. Me. Even so, I think that many people will not understand this because they have lived through the struggle, and when they see or hear this, they tend to think that then anything goes, that nothing should be done in the face of injustices. I am, well, let's explain it very easily. When someone is knitting a scarf, the threads are intertwined, creating a pattern. But if there is a knot in the middle, if a conflict is generated, what is the solution you will seek? Cut them? Burn the scarf? Or patch it up, looking for where the problem is from the origin and start weaving that part again? Me. What you say brings back a very emotional memory that is stuck in my mind. Once, my mother was knitting a scarf as a gift to my partner for her birthday. But the scarf had been left with knots in the middle and she didn't quite know why. So with my character of wanting to fix everything now, I told him, "You can cut that protruding thing with scissors, it won't affect it." I convinced her and helped her, but the end result was that the scarf was left with many little holes in the middle. My mother had spent a long time doing that beautiful knitting, and I ruined it in 1 minute by wanting to help her. I felt her pain and her frustration, and it still hurts me today, because she wanted to hide what she felt. Then he took a little more time to repair the holes, but even today I feel the pain of all that it meant to do that. I realized that by wanting to eliminate the things that I thought were bad in the framework, all I did was ruin all the fabric, all that effort that a mother has made with love. Sometimes I see humanity as I saw myself, believing that by removing what we consider to be wrong, we improve the fabric of the world, when perhaps we are just poking holes in the beautiful fabric of Mother Earth, which took millions of years to create. Do it. And yes, there are knots, but it is necessary to mend them carefully, delicately, understanding where they come from, why, and reweave from there, understanding the pattern. I am. Wars are not only caused by knots, but by cutting those knots. Now you understand that adversities are only evolution tools. They are knots that are there to remind us that we can always improve. Me. I face adversities. Well, not to fight against them, but to improve who I am. I am. You are your greatest adverse aspect. Observe yourself and you will remember the universe.
Mahasa.